Hi everyone, it's Hairyfrankfurt and today's story time is all about what happened to my last apartment. If you're new to my channel and you like story times, make sure you do subscribe because this is something regular I do on my channel, and I have a full playlist if you want to click the card as well so you can check out all of the videos in that playlist. But today's video is all about what happened to the apartment that I was living in the last time I was uploading regularly on this channel. So get ready for a ride. To be clear, I loved that apartment, and anyone who watched my videos at that time or was spending time with me during the time that I was there from November 19th through to May 20th, you would have known that I loved living there. I loved the independence, I loved being on my own, having my own space, not having to worry about anyone around me, being able to like be in my own space, and just that flexibility, that freedom, the independence, having my own routine, not having to work around another person. I really loved it there. Like, I loved it there so much. And it was not only the apartment and the building, it was to an extent the location, it was the actual it was just being on my own, and there were so many things about it that I loved so much. If I could have, I would have stayed there. If you have already watched the last video in my Where I've Been series, you would know that my workplace was not great, and as a result, I was under quite a lot of financial strain. If you haven't watched that video, please go ahead and click the card so that you can watch it now, because it explains a lot of what was going on. As a result of everything that I mentioned in that video, obviously finances started running up and I was really not able to afford my rent. I was paying $370 a week in rent and I was earning less than that because I wasn't getting work. So I had my student allowance, but it was not cutting it. So when my real estate agent asked me in January and February whether I'd be renewing my lease, I really had no intention not to, but I wasn't sure because by that stage I didn't know that work was drying up, and I thought I could still handle it, but I didn't know what I wanted to do in May because it was just, I was testing the waters. I only signed up for a 6-month lease from November 19th through to May 19th, and I really just didn't know how I would go at first, so I only signed up for the 6 months. So in 3 months, I really didn't have a solid answer of how I was going there. I loved it and I wanted to stay, but I didn't know what May would bring. I didn't know what April would bring, and I had no idea what it would bring. Like, I was not expecting what happened at all. So my real estate agent had asked me in about January, February whether I'd be renewing my lease, and I didn't know until about March when work started drying up, and in April there was really no work left to be had, and I basically reached out to a friend and was like, hey, I know you're not happy where you are, would you like to move in together? And when we agreed to do so, I kind of had that little sense of relief that I could start saving money again. I could actually not spend every little cent that I had on rent, and I wouldn't be having to sell my food to earn rent and like doing stupid little things to make my rent up. And so I was really excited. I was upset to leave the apartment, to leave my independence, but I was kind of excited for the new journey that it would be. So around April, a friend and I decided that I would no longer be renewing my lease, so I let my real estate agent know, and then it was, you know, texting back and forth, what about this place, what about this place, looking at places and not really knowing how he felt, and not really sitting down to kind of talk about it. In the beginning of May, when my lease was up on the 19th, my friend and I finally sit down and say, look, well, the idea was that we were gonna sit down and say, let's look at places, what do we like, when can we book an inspection, let's get our schedules sorted out. But as soon as I went to do that, we met up, and the first thing she lets me know is I can't move out anymore. And that was early May, so I had about 12 days to look for a new person, to look for a new place, to do all these things, and my real estate agent had just let me know that she had pretty much found someone else to fill my shoes. So I couldn't stay in the apartment that I was in. I couldn't afford to anyways. I had a tiny little glimmer of hope that a friend and I would be able to move out, and then she shoots me down and says, that's not happening anymore, sorry, you're on your own. And I was back in that anxious state of not knowing where I was gonna live, like really not knowing what I was gonna do. I hadn't even started packing at this stage because I was so so fearful. I was really afraid of what was gonna happen next. I basically finished up our little coffee date, ran home, was messaging everyone I knew to be like, hey, who is willing to move? Because most of my friends are either in leases or own their homes or don't need to move. And so I finally found someone who wanted to move and was willing to move, and we started immediately looking at places, and like this was May 5th or something, so I literally had a fortnight to find somewhere and move and get all of the application process and everything done with a friend. So it took me a few days to find someone, and then it took me a few days for us to set up and get prepared to actually look at places. And then on, I think, May 8th and May 10th, we finally went on inspections. We went on May 8th and we saw one that we liked, and then on May 10th, we put in our application. A couple hours later, we find out we're successful. And just after successfully submitting that rental application, we get into a car accident that totals his car, which is his mode of transport and his method of income and employment. He was no longer able to move out. So I had 9 days to find somewhere, and I had exhausted my social group. There was no one left that I could ask. I had run out of enough time to put together a new application and I mean, not even that, like you've got to find places, you've got to inspect them first, then you've got to put in your application, then you've got to wait for it to be approved after they've gone through all those reference checks and everything. And so I was like, I had nothing. I had nothing. Later that day, messaged my aunt and asked if I could go and stay there. Thankfully, she was kind enough to oblige, and so I got to stay in one of my cousin's bedroom. It was such a relief. I couldn't bring any of my furniture, so really all I brought was my laptop and a few clothes, and I went and I did it. And I brought my textbooks and bags. I had nothing with me. I had to ask a friend if I could put all my stuff in their garage and just hope that it would be okay, because I wasn't there to look after my bed or have any of my stuff. So I threw away most of the things that I had accumulated in the apartment. Not that I had accumulated much, but I had to throw away a lot. And then I went, put all my real furniture into storage. So I didn't stream, I didn't film, I was staying in a family house. So it was nice for the comfort of not having to worry about that financial burden, not having to worry about all of the stress, and having that kind of like calming family was really incredible for my mental health at the time, because I mean, roller coaster. I had basically put in the intention that I would be leaving around the end of July, because that was when my next friend would be ready to move out. And so I was like, look, around the end of July, early August. But every time I had, it had been a case of, don't worry about it, you're okay, you're safe here, we want you to stay as long as you need. Towards the middle of July, my friend said, I can't move out anymore. I had to tell my family, but it wasn't as big of a stress. It wasn't as big of a fuck, my friend can't move out, I can't move, because I wasn't put in any pressure to move. Whereas previously I had a lease that was ending on a specific date and I had to be gone by that date. In this case, it was kind of like, oh, sorry, I need to stay a little longer, and I was told that's totally okay. Then on July 30th, my aunt reminds me that I'd said July 31st, and she kind of says, your cousins are both coming home and we need those bedrooms for them. And like, no disrespect, it was not planned for them, it was not planned for me. It was, again, one of those things where the universe was just throwing me a curveball and giving me something to deal with. So with that information, I had a matter of days to look for someone else to move with, because again, I wasn't really in a position where I could afford a place on my own, and I couldn't really justify it because I didn't know where I wanted to be situated in the city. So I ended up finding a friend who wanted to move here, and we put in our application on like the 3rd of August, right? We kind of waited a long time for our application to be approved, because for whatever reason, the references we had provided were not used for some reason. So we put in our application and we get told tentative approval awaiting these references, and they're like, yep, we've spoken to your references, but our references hadn't been spoken to, so it really made no sense at all. On August 7th, we get approved for a move-in of August 8th, and on the call that I'm making to them to be like, where the hell is our application, when are we getting approved, on August 7th, they said, so when did you want to move in by? And I said, tomorrow. And they said, whoa, we don't have the keys. I mean, that was actually just them not knowing they had the keys, but it kind of tells you the mind space of them and the laissez-faire, if you will, kind of relationship they have with their work and professional things. So I was freaking out because we needed to move the next day because the person I moved out with needed to move on that day. Her lease was ending on that day. So we had to move on the 8th. They didn't have the keys, but they found them, and then we go in to sign the lease, and then we move on the 8th, and then on, I think it was like the 10th or something, we find out they don't have our lease or our bond forms, and so I've just forked out all of the bond for this place, and then we've got to do it all over again. We've got to sign the lease and do all these things, and it was a lot, but we made it. I'm here now, and again, it's a 6-month lease that ends on February 7th. So February 7th, I'm going to be moving again because I think I'm ready in here and in here and in here to be living on my own again, because I have a job that is more secure and I don't need to be living with people and I don't really like it. So that is the literally like 9-month story of why I'm no longer in my apartment. That's what happened to my apartment. But you best believe I'm gonna be finding a tiny little 1-bedroom apartment, and I'm gonna sign up for like a 10-year lease because I'm sick of moving. It's so stressful. It is one of the major stresses that a human can go under, aside from the surgery. You know, it's huge and it's stressful, and it was a lot of fear and anxiety and stress and just avoidance. That is another reason why I wasn't uploading, because like I said, when I was with my family, I didn't feel comfortable because I wanted to kind of be in the family situation, and I loved it so much, but I couldn't stay. And then I came here and I was just trying to settle from all of the moves and all of the things and find my place and kind of get back to my voice. But now I'm back, and that is what happened to my apartment. It was a lot, and I hope you guys can appreciate that that is a lot. If you guys enjoyed this story time, make sure you do subscribe, and you will see me in the next video. So click the box and hit the bell so that you know when it goes up. Okay, bye.